Imagine someone who lives in a condition where everything is provided for them. They have free housing, housekeeper, personal chef, shopping service, laundry service, personal chauffeur, takes them anywhere they need to go, use of a vehicle, gas, private counseling whenever required, free electricity, communications, all provided, a wide range of free entertainment offerings. Can you think of anybody who lives under this condition? I can think of about 113. Think about your life situation right now. Your only real responsibility is to improve yourself. Your biggest problems in life are things like having 3 tests in 1 week. Which, now I'm not belittling that, believe me. To paraphrase Notre Dame coach Lou Holtz, you've never been 59, but I have been 16. And I remember. But as you grow older, this is going to change. One day, you are likely to have people depending on you for housing, meals, laundry, transportation, counseling, electricity, communications, entertainment, and more. And you're going to encounter adversity in the process. Now, I'm not going to ask you dads this because I don't want to embarrass you, so I'll just ask the moms. How many of you have been up at 2:30 in the morning cleaning up puke? Yeah, a bunch of you, right? Have you guys ever stopped for gas on the way to swimming practice? And you see all those trucks at 7-Eleven? And we complain about getting up early? Those guys get up earlier than we do for 40 or 50 years. And then they work outside in the cold in the winter, heat of the summer, and we complain about the air not flowing at the Freedom Center. I catch myself sometimes and I just have to say to myself, oh, stop. But I'll tell you a little secret, I don't like to get up early any more than you guys do. But these guys have gotten so used to it, they would laugh if I called it adversity. It's just, to them, it's just what adults do when you have responsibilities. But believe it or not, this is the kind of thing I think about when I'm on the pool deck. There are loads of people that can coach swimming better than me. Coach Mulhern, Ross, and Palazzo among them. Why do you think I'm not coaching the top 2 groups myself? Because I know. But preparing you to swim fast is not what this is really all about. I'm trying to prepare you for the rest of your life. You're going to, and it's going to involve adversity, and it'll probably involve some significant adversity. And with people depending on you, you're going to have to be able to overcome that adversity and thrive. Now, let's imagine for a moment that the company your manufacturer's rep agency has represented for more than 20 years gets taken over by the bank and flipped to a competitor. Then let's imagine that a company in which you're heavily invested and you've brought in a whole bunch of other money from friends is informed they're losing their key integration partner. And then to top it all off, your high school swim team loses the conference championship for the first time in 29 years. And all that happens in the same week. You're like, you got to start asking yourself, what did I do to anger the gods? It's been a painful run for me this season. Even my weight's been going back up. I was on the scale. I caught myself sucking it in on the scale. And Colleen's like, Jim, that's not going to help you lose weight. And I said, but hon, it's the only way I could see the numbers. So shortly after all this was going down, I had a conversation with kind of the key guy and my customer, the director of national accounts, and we were having our own little pity party, and he said, "Man, you're sure taking this pretty well." And I said, "Well, David, we're lucky. This is how we get to suffer." For me, one of the reasons I love the Catholic faith is because it helps me understand and make sense of the world around me. Despite what charlatans like Joel Osteen say, you can't pray your way to prosperity or out of pain. I mean, it's obvious. We all live in the world. We can just see that is not true, right? Bad things happen to good people. But unfortunately, our faith doesn't dismiss this. It explains it. And it explains it by connecting the role of suffering in our lives to what happens next. The Catholic faith has a beautiful teaching on this. I'm no theologian, but I had a good friend who was a Deacon Bernie Reagan, and he had kind of a way of explaining it that made a lot of sense to me. He always told me that he didn't believe God would judge us because he believed we would judge ourselves. He said that when we had a chance to look into the face of God, we would be like a little child who knew he did wrong and was afraid to look his mother in the face. We'd be so ashamed and so sad that we disappointed her, that we'd want to suffer. We'd want to endure the opportunity to have our soul cleansed for the beatific vision, even if that meant suffering on earth. Such an easy concept intellectually, but how hard it is to internalize, right? Suffering, a blessing. When offered up, it cleanses our soul so we can stare into the face of God with joy. Really? So easy to lose faith and wonder why an almighty God would allow anyone to suffer, much less some of the sufferings we see in our own Satan community. After my conversation with David, I thought, man, that was pretty good. But why doesn't it feel very good? I was really struggling hard with that question through those middle weeks of January. I know some of you noticed. Sorry for that. But since that time, I've had 4 important realizations that completely changed my way of thinking about this. And I hope that they'll help you one day when you take that inevitable big hit in some aspect of your life. The most immediate and impactful realization was my total lack of humility. Like, what makes my problem so special? If I thought about it for even just a few seconds, I could think of 10 people who got bigger problems than me. Comparing my problems to theirs, it's sort of embarrassing to even use a word like suffering. I was sitting in a board meeting with the CEO, and we're fire sailing his company for less than the debt. And we're having a little chit-chat before the meeting, and what am I doing? I'm sitting there talking about my problems. And I'm like, whoa, then it hit me. Like, hey, Jim, wake up. Dude, the world is not about you. It made me think of that G.K. Chesterton book, The Invisible Man. You 7th graders and 6th graders, this is going to be a summer reading assignment, so listen up here. Because this is what it's really about. It's a bizarre little story about the people that pass through our lives completely unseen. Like the woman who set up the coffee and breakfast at the hotel at States. You guys remember what she looked like? Did you say thank you? Or the guy cleaning the bathroom at O'Hare Airport. On a recent trip, I was walking in and out of the bathroom, just hundreds of guys racing to their flights and everything, and there was this old guy cleaning the bathroom. And I just thought, I turned around and said, hey, thanks for cleaning up after us. And he just gave me a nod, a smile. But you know who was smiling bigger than him? I was. Was part of my problem that I just needed to start thinking of someone other than myself? I think it may have been. I thought about a book on John Paul the Great I just listened to recently, and he called it the law of the gift. Responsible self-giving, not self-assertion, is the road to human fulfillment. Then Cardinal Wojtyla said, his famous line from Vatican II says, man finds himself only by making himself a sincere gift to others. How paradoxical. If I want to refine myself, I need to look away from myself. But I could feel it starting to work. It doesn't require big showy acts. It could be little mortifications. One thing I've been doing for years, not even my wife knows. I never walk past a single piece of trash. Now, if there's a bunch of trash, I walk past that. I'm not gonna, no, there's rules to this mortification. It's a little mortification. If there's one piece of trash all by itself screaming at me to pick it up, I pick it up, and then I say a little prayer for someone. Usually Father Sean, because he's just wearing me out about how I need to pray for him. So he gets all the trash prayers. But that's why by the time I got to championship season, I finally realized, as hard as the season was, swimming's been a real gift to me during this time. Turning outside myself was a lot more than a mere distraction. It was these daily acts of humility that gave me a sense of purpose. I was feeling better. The next thing I realized is that my adversity was founded in a choice I myself made. This was my own damn fault. How many times have I told you all how lucky you are? Because you've heard this, right? You were born in a free country where any advantages or disadvantages can be negated or overcome by the choices you make. Bad choices are frequently the cause of suffering. Quit your job for a dumb reason. Drink too much. Have sex before you're married. Not doing your algebra homework. But that leads back to humility, right? We're not special. If we make a bad choice and bad things happen, we just need to own it. And suffering can happen for good choices, after good choices too, though. I don't think I made a bad choice. I did choose to make my living as an entrepreneur and private equity and venture capital investor. It's not exactly a risk-free way to support a family. I have this picture of Sam Walton. He's the founder of Walmart. It's hanging in my office. He's got an entrepreneur's creed. I seek opportunity, not security. I want to take the calculated risk, to dream, to build, to fail and succeed. Sometimes I fail. Sometimes I succeed. I have consciously chosen that. I've consciously chosen to run without a net. It's what allows me to coach and teach. Yeah, I work all the time, but I don't go to work. When things go poorly, those of you who know me, I have a common expression. I say, well, that's why they call it risk. Sure, I could get a job. I could probably get a pretty good job. Salary, bonus, benefits, 401k match, maybe even a pension after 30 years. But that's not the choice I made. I made the choice. I own the choice. And as I pondered all that I know now, I had to ask myself, would I make a different choice? No. So suck it up, sweetheart. It's your choice. I know a bunch of you were pretty upset when your 400 free relay got DQ'd at States for an early takeoff. Didn't faze me a bit. We all knew we had to beat Covenant for the state championship, and we all knew Will Charlton was on the back end of that relay, and it was a long shot. If we were going to have any prayer at all, we were going to have to take a risk. It cost us the runner-up, state runner-up. We could have been state runner-up. We lost that by 1 point. But you know what? I do that 100 out of 100 times. You're not going to catch me playing for second place. Yeah, there were tears and there was suffering, but we made a choice. And I think you guys can all proudly own that choice. And then the realization that I'm living with the choice led logically in my mind to the third realization. It's time to head back to the Coldwater the Freedom Center at 6:04 and get back to work. Again, quoting Notre Dame coach Lou Holtz, life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond to it. I have a slightly different twist on that same concept that many of you have heard me say before. Never play the victim, even if you are. Why? Because it's just not helpful. When you play the victim and blame someone else for your problem, you're quitting. You're succumbing to things you cannot control. If you're going to live God's plan, we got to start by controlling what you can control. And one of those things is how hard we work. So I've jumped back in the fight. Thanks to Vicki Zadnik, who helps me with my Algebra 2 class. And thanks to Coach Mulhern, Coach Palazzo, Coach Ross, for handling so many practices without me. Not that they're not handling practices without me, even when I'm there. You can't be a quitter if you're going to be a good swimmer, and you can't be a quitter if you're going to make your living. Choose to make your living the way I do. I understand why some of you might be upset when you have a bad race or don't swim a PR. That doesn't necessarily mean that you didn't do your best on that particular day. You can sulk, but it turns out sulking's not particularly helpful. Or you can own it. Like, what did I do? What did I eat? How did I sleep? Was I properly hydrated? Did I warm down properly after my last race? And most importantly, you can get back in the water on Monday at 6:04 and get back to work with a renewed commitment. It's okay to say someone's better than you, but no one should ever be able to say that they try harder than you. That, you can control that. It's why I go crazy on deck. You don't always see it, but the coaches do. Go crazy on deck when you can do 50 in 24 or 25 seconds and you take the 100 out in 28. Or you take the 100 out fast and shut it down when it starts to hurt. It drives me insane. Try hard when it really hurts. It is why I was even more passionate about the 500 free this year, right? If you can't face up to 9 or 10 minutes of continuous swimming, then I have failed you. I've failed to prepare you for what's coming in your life. And finally, in the midst of all these sleepless ponderings, I came to the biggest realization of all. I said, if this is what suffering looks like to me, I'm pretty darn lucky. My challenges were starting to become increasingly manageable as I pondered the countless good things in my life. What am I worried about? I got all the important things. I'm still madly in love with that varsity swimmer I met at Notre Dame more than 40 years ago. And she, quite understandably, is madly in love with me too. She was a little slow on the uptake, but she figured it out. And this isn't an existential crisis for me. I've spent my entire life developing the gifts that God gave me. So I have the ability to figure this out, and I will. My mother always used to say, everything happens for a reason. I believe that. I know that this, in God's providence, will somehow lead to good. I'm just sort of hoping that good is while I'm still on earth. And maybe this is an opportunity for change. Father John Heisler once said, pain and sorrow are the movements that lead you to change. What change can I make to turn this into some good? The answer to that's going to take a few more sleepless nights, but I'll figure that out too. When I first told David, we're lucky, this is the way we get to suffer, I knew that was true intellectually, but I'm not sure I fully accepted it. It was only after I recognized my own arrogance, accepted that this was ultimately my choice, recommitted myself to more hard work, and acknowledged all the reasons I had to be grateful in my life, that I fully understood how powerful what I had said to David actually was. For all my trials this season, I've come to realize that I am truly a lucky man. Who has it better than us? Nobody. Thank you.